Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unpack the chilling true story of 657 Boulevard. Imagine, for a second, spending your entire life saving up for that perfect dream home. You know, a safe haven where you can raise your family and just build your future, only to have it become the dead center of a terrifying modern mystery. Well, today, we are diving deep into one of the most unsettling, unsolved cases in recent American history. Let's get right into it. So set the scene. The year is 2014, and Derek and Maria Broaddus felt like they had absolutely nailed the American dream. They just bought this stunning, historic 6-bedroom house at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey, and this neighborhood, highly sought after. It was known for these quiet, gorgeous tree-lined streets and just a really friendly vibe. The family was beyond excited, spending all their time planning renovations and dreaming about family dinners. For a moment, everything was totally picture perfect. But, as you might guess, that perfection really didn't last long. Just a few days after buying the place, Derek swung by to check on some of the early renovation work. He casually checks the mailbox and finds this plain white envelope addressed simply to the new owner. At first, he just figured, oh, it's a polite welcome note from a neighbor, right? And it actually started off pretty pleasantly. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard. But as he kept reading, that warm sense of security completely evaporated. Part 1. The letters. An escalation of terror. Because the tone of that initial welcome note shifted incredibly fast. The writer boldly claimed that their family had been observing this specific house for decades. They literally called themselves the Watcher, saying that their grandfather and their father had watched the house, and now, well, it was their turn. The letters went from weird to deeply, deeply unsettling in a flash. The Watcher wasn't just throwing out vague, spooky claims. They actually knew really specific, non-public details about the interior renovations and the exact layout of the house. They were mentioning rooms that had just been painted and subtle changes the family had made. And then came this terrifying question: have they found what is in the walls yet? Derek literally froze. I mean, wouldn't you? And unfortunately, it didn't stop there. It escalated. The writer began explicitly asking about the Broaddus children by name. They wanted to know if the kids would be playing down in the basement, and chillingly, they actually referred to the children as young blood, asking if the family had started filling the house with it yet. It became undeniably clear that this wasn't just some random troll sending mail from across the country. Whoever this was, they were observing the family and the property in real time. So you really have to ask yourself, what is this? A threat? A really sick, cruel joke? Or something much, much worse? The family immediately called the police, just clinging to the hope that maybe this was merely a prank by an eccentric neighbor with a terrible sense of humor. The cops advised them to keep it quiet while they investigated, but a few weeks later, a second, even more detailed letter showed up, and that pretty much confirmed their absolute worst fears. Whoever this was, they never stopped watching. Part 2. The investigation. A trail of dead ends. Desperate for any kind of answer, authorities launched a massive inquiry. I'm talking interviewing neighbors, testing envelopes for DNA, scouring property records, the whole shebang. But no matter where they turned, the clues just seemed to evaporate into thin air. The police were dealing with a total, frustrating lack of physical evidence. First, they zeroed in on Michael, an unusual neighbor who had a direct line of sight to the house. The result? Zero DNA, zero fingerprints. Okay, what about the former owners? Well, it turns out they did receive a weird letter right before moving out, but they just threw it away and ignored it. Again, no physical evidence tied them to the new letters. Eventually, the internet and the public even started pointing fingers at the Broaddus family themselves, suggesting they staged a hoax for financial reasons or sympathy. But once again, police found absolutely zero proof of that. Every single solid lead just totally collapsed. And as time ticked by, it built this picture of absolute agonizing suspense for the family. Days turned into weeks, and weeks bled right into months. Because of this constant stream of letters detailing the renovations and asking about their kids, the family actually delayed moving in altogether. The house basically sat largely empty. They were paying the mortgage on a dream home they were quite literally too terrified to sleep in, all while the police investigation completely stalled out. But then, years into this completely failed investigation, we get a massive, shocking twist.
Investigators finally managed to recover a partial DNA profile from underneath the stamp of one of the envelopes, and it suggested the sender might actually be female. This is huge, because for years, literally everyone assumed the watcher was a man just based on the authoritative, demanding tone of the letters. This revelation completely upended the investigation, forcing the cops to look at a whole new set of suspects. Yet, incredibly, it still led to no arrests. Nothing.
Part 3. The psychological toll. The real destruction. You know, while the public and internet sleuths became utterly obsessed with the true crime mystery of it all, Googling floor plans for hidden crawl spaces and coming up with these wild theories, the real tragedy here was the absolute psychological destruction of the Broadest family. That fear of the unknown just completely invaded their minds. Think about it. A car parked on the street for maybe a few extra minutes. A random stranger just walking their dog. A neighbor simply glancing over in the direction of their house. All of these completely normal, mundane things suddenly transformed into terrifying triggers for paranoia. Because when you don't know who is threatening you, absolutely everyone becomes a suspect.
And what makes this case so uniquely horrifying is the actual nature of the threat. Look at the physical reality. The watcher never actually attacked them, they never broke in, they never even showed their face. But the psychological reality? They completely destroyed this family's peace of mind. They created an unbearable state of paranoia and ultimately forced them to abandon their life's dream. The truly brilliant terror of this stalker was that they never actually needed to escalate to physical violence to completely dismantle a family's life. Experts who analyzed the language used in the letters concluded that the writer really didn't seem motivated by money, and honestly, perhaps didn't even truly want to physically harm the family. Instead, the letters reeked of just one thing: obsession. A persistent, incredibly disturbing preoccupation with the physical building at 657 Boulevard itself. They wrote about the house almost as if it were a living, breathing entity that they were somehow uniquely chosen to protect.
Part 4. An unsolved mystery. The lingering fear. Eventually, the Broadest family was forced into an impossible corner. They just couldn't live in the house because of the constant fear. But they also couldn't easily sell it because, well, the property had become globally famous for all the wrong reasons. So eventually, they took a massive financial hit and were forced to move on, leaving that perfect dream entirely unfulfilled.
Today, 657 Boulevard still stands exactly where it always has. If you were to drive past it right now, it looks entirely silent, totally ordinary, but it carries this incredibly heavy weight of a mystery that just continues to fascinate the world. And it fascinates us, I think, precisely because it preys on one of our absolute deepest, most primal human fears: the fear of being secretly observed by an unknown entity hiding right there in plain sight. The true identity of the Watcher remains completely unknown to this day, and honestly, it very well may never be solved. But it leaves all of us with one haunting, unavoidable question to consider. What would you do if you poured your life savings into your absolute dream house, walked to the mailbox on day one, and found a letter from a stranger who claimed they were watching you? Would you stay, or would you run?